So hopefully we're both recording now. Good old technology. Zoom's been playing up for me. So the first time I've had these lovely ladies on, Julia and Carly, soul twins from Australia. Now I think we've got a bit of a delay on the Zoom today. So please everyone bear with us. So if we look like we're talking over each other, it's the delay. How are you both?
Yeah.
We're very well, thank you, Catherine. Well, I guess as good as we can be down here, down under. As you know, there's a lot of stuff going on down here at the moment, and it is very difficult to keep up with things, even being here within the country. So, yeah, a lot of not too good stuff happening, especially with our governments, which I'm sure most of your viewers know a lot about. It's hard to sort of not know anything about, isn't it? So, but how about you, Catherine? How's everything traveling over there in the UK?
And thank you for having us
on,
by the way.
Well, yeah, before
we
we
should
get
do formality.
into that, because this is the first time on, can you, each of you, introduce yourselves and then the soul twins, and just tell us a little bit about how you got started down this journey? Because I've been following you. I think the first time I saw you was on Charlie's ages ago, and then I've been following you since then. So just introduce yourselves to everyone and tell us how you got started into all this.
Okay, yep, we'll start from the beginning then. Well, I'm Carly, in case any of your audience members don't know.
Julia.
Yeah, so we are sisters. Our channel is called Soul Twins.
Carly and Julia Soul Twins.
Soul Twins, that's it, yeah.
And we're just 1 year apart, Catherine, so we're very close. We're both born in May. So we're exactly 1 year apart.
1 year and 19 days.
Yes,
to be exact.
And yeah, we've grown up very close, like our whole life, and you know, we've always been I guess the entertainers of the family, and the, you know, the performers, the people that uplift people. And we both were very intuitive when we were young. I had an awakening at 11 actually, and that was quite a traumatic experience for me. But what actually happened during that experience was that I sort of was a child one day, and then the next day I became instantly an adult through this awakening that I had. And yeah, it was quite a traumatic experience. I don't know if you want me to go into detail about this, but
yeah, no, if you're happy to, because it's completely up to you how much you want to share. But I think it's so interesting to see, you know, we'll come on to both of you, because I think it's really fascinating to see different people's journeys into what they're doing and how the aha moments. Yeah, please do, Julia.
Yeah. So I guess I'll go back a little bit further. When I was about 6 or 7, I could really pick up on energy, and specifically darker energy. So if I remember playing in my nana's backyard, and it was, I often would feel like dark entities around me, but I didn't know what that was at the time. You know, you can't really express this kind of thing when you're a child to your parents. But I just remember feeling there was definitely energies around me, and I had to create really nice experiences to sort of block that out. And Carly, you were very helpful in that. I think Carly and I must have telepathically connected, I think, when we were young, and we still do now. We'll like literally be in separate rooms, and we'll come out and we'll say exactly the same thing that we were thinking about. And Carly was very good at telepathically knowing what I needed to be comfortable and safe, because I didn't feel very safe from these darker energies that I definitely picked up on. So when I was about 11, I went to this birthday party, and there was a horror movie that was the entertainment at an 11-year-old party, and my parents never exposed me. My parents never exposed me to anything of the sort. We were very pure, and we grew up just dancing and singing and those types of things. And what actually happened when I watched that film is I instantly, the following day, felt so different. And what happened was I got this message or download or something that told me that the film was real, in a sense. Like, this was actually going on in real life. Like, this was happening in the world, and it was all happening behind the scenes, underground. And I got this very clearly coming through, and I was like, oh my God, you know, like, what's happening? And again, it wasn't something I could really communicate to my parents, because I just instantly knew that there was a lot of weird stuff going on in the world, and it was being projected out through these films, and these like really dark, evil films. So that was my initial awakening. And from that journey on, I was basically told that you needed to bring as much light as possible to offset all this weird stuff that's going on in the world. And again, I didn't know why or why I was given this task to do at such a young age. But every day from that moment on, Catherine, I really committed to delivering on that, and have worked really hard at clearing my own energy, and definitely getting as high consciousness as possible to try and combat this evil, which, yeah, I found out about very early on. And my parents did, for a time, I think they tried to send me to a psychologist to help and that kind of thing. And of course, they wanted to put me on meds, and I knew at the time I didn't need that.
The psychologist wanted to put you on
meds.
Yeah.
And my parents were never into that anyway. So they were very supportive, and they understood that this was a spiritual journey. My mum was always very into spiritual books and things like that. So I definitely were given the right parents to assist in this journey. And hopefully that will make sense to the audience. I'm kind of trying to squash it into a small way of telling it. But, you know, it definitely wasn't an easy journey. I knew as soon as that moment happened in my life, I was going to have to go through a lot to work out why. I had to know the why. I was never one to just sit back and be like, oh, okay. I questioned everything. And I can definitely see the dark elements within people, unfortunately. But I feel like it's one of my purposes in life to help to cleanse people with my energy and to rid them of darkness. So that's really what has been my journey. And then doing that in and around normal jobs and normal school. You know, at the time, nobody did anything to do with this. Nobody knew what, you know, empaths were or indigos were. Like, it wasn't a thing until probably about 15 years ago. I read my first indigo book, and it kind of made a bit of sense, but not exactly my story. So that's my story. And then, you know, to bring it forward to this time now, Catherine, I feel like it's come full circle, and having this awakening, this great awakening in the world, has made so much sense, because, you know, all the years that we've been sort of working hard on this, and nobody really confirming it for us other than ourselves, and going, hey, this isn't right, or, you know, we don't trust this, we don't trust the government, why do people have to be forced into this, why is there so much inequality, why, so many questions throughout our whole life. You know, we never did settle for anything. You know, we really kept pushing forward, and we knew that the thing we wanted to communicate to the audience is that we knew that there was going to be better at some point in this lifetime. And here we are, you know, we're getting there. And this whole journey that we're on now with the YouTube channel and this kind of thing, it all makes sense that we can actually bring our story to the fore and work alongside people that are really, you know, had their own journey, and they're amazing to us, and they've helped us grow as well. I'll let you take the floor now.
I mean, obviously, Julia's story. Well, obviously, Julia's story is quite compelling, and, you know, in a sense, I lived it as well, because I was there. We're only, as we said, we're only 1 year apart, and you know, the reason why we call the channel Soul Twins is because to some degree, we actually feel like we are twins, almost in a sense. And you've heard stories about many twins out there that can actually feel the other's pain and things like that. They know certain things that the other twin is going through.
Are you?
Oh, there you go.
I'm
so you can maybe
we'll come on to that afterwards. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we're not actually twins, but we do feel like there's just so much of a connection, and we believe that we've obviously had past lives together, that perhaps we were warriors together in some capacity, helping each other through the past lives. We've come to understand that now a lot more.
Yes, and we have opposing qualities.
We do. We actually are quite different. Like we have some similarities, Catherine, and I think a lot of that comes from, you know, being around each other. And a lot of people say we look the same, and some people say we look different, but it depends, you know, in what setting and what, you know, mannerisms you're getting. So you're probably forming your own opinion there right now of things that you can see within one of us and the other one of us. So look, it has been a fairly long journey for us, you know, through our lives. And similar to Julia, I have probably different intuitive skills to Julia, and I also was probably exposed to that at quite a young age. So probably around the age of 5 or 6 when I first started going to primary school. You know, I had, you know, there was, you know, I was dealt with, like, you know, some nasty children to deal with, and I, you know, up to that point in time, I didn't really know what nasty children could be like. And I started picking up on these energies, and I was, my mum was realizing that, perhaps the school I was in wasn't right. So she changed me, and there was just different things. Now I'm quite a sociable person, but I have had, those early years of my life where, I found it quite difficult because I was thinking differently to other people, and I was picking up on other energies, and I would quite often feel a bit uncomfortable going to, parties where there was a lot of kids, a lot of gatherings, especially ones that were like sleepovers, and there was a long amount of time that I had to be with other people, other kids, because I couldn't manage all those energies for that amount of time. And at the time, I just thought I was just a bit weird, or was I being unsocial? Because I'm actually very both of us are quite like bubbly, entertainment type characters. We were always like that. I was always the person that was like, we'll do game shows when we were young, and I was always the presenter. I was always organizing everything, and I was that sort of confident person. But in large sort of groups with a lot of energies, I really struggled. And it's only really, probably since I was, I guess, sort of late teenage years and going into university and then into work, I guess I gained different skills of how to manage that. But it took a lot of time. And then I realized through that process that I actually did have intuitive skills. I just didn't know it. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
And then, Julia, Julia sort of, quite often she would say to me, how do you feel about this? What do you predict for this? And I wouldn't really call myself a psychic as such. Maybe in time, in years, I might refer to myself as that. But I'm, in a sense, I'm still working on my skills and gaining my confidence in those areas. But I guess I would probably refer to myself as more of like a future sort of energy or predictor sort of person, and also in the present. That's my skills. Julia explained her skills more around dealing with and bringing light to dark energies and that sort of thing. So I guess they complement each other in that sense, and that's why I guess both of us are empaths, and we've kind of brought all these skills together, and through our work as well. Like I did a degree in communication at university, so even though obviously I don't agree with all of the principles that they were teaching at universities and in academia and all of that, I did take a great deal from that. I learned how to write and how to speak a lot better. And I always had this goal. I wanted to do communicating. I wanted to present information and make information easy for people to understand. And I wanted to be, I guess for a time I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to do that, but when I actually got into, I finally got a chance to be working for the media, and I worked for a TV station, big TV station here in Australia for 7 years. And, whilst I really, I loved a lot of moments of it, I loved a lot of the people, they're very out there sort of people. Everyone's very ambitious, they're very talented. But there's a lot of darkness within those industries. And Julia's come from, media and production backgrounds as well. There's a lot of darkness within that. And, you really do, I guess, get moments along the way where you're like, well, should I go down that road or should I go down this road? What's really going to resonate with me personally? And you do, when I first started, I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. These people are just too ridiculous. Like the personalities and everyone's just, as I said, so ambitious. But then as you get part of the culture, you start picking up on those traits, and you're working 24/7 pretty much. You're just going along with it because you think you have to, and because that's what I thought I wanted in life. And there was an opportunity where I could have gone more down the road. I worked in more like sales and marketing and advertising sort of aspects of the TV industry. There was roads where I could have gone down to pursue more of the journalism thing, but every time something popped up with that, I just felt really uncomfortable about it. And I kept stopping short of that. And I was around a lot of those people. I worked with them very closely. I know, as I said, I was friends with and knew a lot of the quite popular presenters, people here in Australia. But now we left our media roles back in 2019, and we actually moved to London, Catherine, as well. We can go into that later, but it really makes sense now. We started feeling just weird. We just started picking up on some weird energy at the beginning of 2019. We're like, we need to make a change in our lives. Like, we need to go with how we're feeling. But we'd done enough in those areas and they weren't really resonating with us anymore.
Well, I think that was sort of hitting a point for us both, Catherine, that we couldn't really get any further in those roles that we were in, because you would have had to sell yourself out in a sense, and neither of us were prepared to do that. So we were like, no, this is getting darker and darker, that the energy's heavier and heavier. We knew something weird was coming. We couldn't really put our finger on it, but we definitely knew we had to get out of that. And
so much of the content that I was, one of my roles was, you know, to promote and advertise and sell the content, in a sense, that we were producing as a network. So you know all of the big shows. I'm sure you have, you know, Bachelor, not that was ours, but you have all those shows, Love Island. We have a lot of renovation type shows, just really big properties that we would be wanting to sell. And things started to change, the way that they were producing it, putting it together. They were skewing it to a lot more drama. And there was different elements within all that things that we had to promote as my role, that I was feeling uncomfortable with, and shows that I was just like, I don't want to watch this. I don't really want to promote this anymore. Like I've had enough of that. I don't want to put that, you know, put that out into the universe. I don't think that's where society should be going. Things just started to just go a bit sort of tip a bit too far, didn't it? With stuff. Yeah.
There's all these early warning signs, aren't there, that people have seen, and what we've seen over the last year and a half has been, you know, pretty shocking, really. I think I'm quite shocked we're still at the stage we're at, in terms of the fact that, you know, this has been going on for a long while. So I can remember last November, you know, everyone had really big hopes that something was going to change. And we had Red October last year as well. And there was all these build-ups and all these dates that come and go and come and go. And it's very weird, isn't it, to be sort of in our position when you're picking up on all these energies and you could see what's happening, but we're not seeing many wins coming through. I mean, where you are in Australia, I don't know, whereabouts are you in Australia? What state are you?
We're in South Australia.
Yeah.
So in Adelaide is the major city. So I guess in a sense, we've been more of the, well, I don't want to say lucky, because nobody's lucky down here in Australia, but at this point, but one of the not so harsh sort of states with restrictions and the shutdowns and whatnot.
Having said that, though, our borders have been shut, you know, probably the most out of all the states in Australia. So we haven't been able to travel anywhere at all, not even out of the state, because it's all requiring a test or something. And it has been like that ever since March 2020. So we got back from London on around February 2020. March. So we just got back in time, actually. So So you're sort of feeling you wanted to see more happen by now.
Well, I think the thing is we think we're seeing certain things going on. And I had a really interesting discussion with Bryce yesterday about this, because, you know, we do still have to question, I think, in terms of, so we think the people that are speaking out about things like this, we think we've got a fairly good idea about a lot of the stuff that's going on. But there must be loads that we've got no idea about that's going on as well, because otherwise we would be seeing hopefully more progress than we're seeing now. I mean, where are your thoughts on where we're at sort of within Australia and globally, and what we are seeing happening, and more importantly, probably what we're not?
Well, when we were I'll just take it back to London, Catherine. When we were in London around January 2020, I remember saying to Carly, I don't know, I feel like we have to maybe get home for some reason. And at the time we were settled in and we were prepared to stay there long term. That was the goal. We had our Italian passports and, you know, we're ready to set up over there for a different life altogether. And I remember saying to Carly, you know, I don't know, I just feel weird. Like, I feel that there's a darkness in the air. Of course, I picked up on that and I was like, well, I feel like maybe we're going to have trouble getting home. Like, I don't feel safe here. How are we going to get to the airport? And you were sort of like, oh, what do you mean? Like, why are you so stressed out about it? And I really didn't know why I was feeling this. But then our Italian cousin mentioned to us that he'd heard about the V, I'll just say the V. And where it originated, it was Korea, wasn't it?
That was the first information I saw. Korea,
And then when I heard about that in January, Catherine, I remember thinking, oh gosh, oh no, this is not going to be quick. This is going to be long-winded. And I don't know why I felt like that, because we've had other V's come and go, but I felt really strange about this one. And I felt like it was going to be a long, sort of drawn out process, but I didn't know anything about like a great awakening. I didn't really delve into that side of things too much. We always just had our own kind of feelings about things would always be good at some point. But yeah, we probably didn't expect this level of control, destruction, craziness. That was never what we probably had anticipated. But in saying that, I definitely felt like this V was going to be a long drawn out process, and it's just kept going and going and going. But clearly, you know, society as a whole has needed so much waking up. There's been so much programming that it keeps sort of taking this level of like push and push and push until people finally go, we've had enough. And I guess, yeah, I think last year we were probably all expecting Mr. T to get back in. It was all just going to be fine. But again, we didn't think it was going to be that easy. But then this year is like a whole new level of crazy. But again, it's like people are being so challenged to the point where they're actually having to be pushed out of their jobs. But it's getting people, as difficult as it is, it's getting people to go, right, I've got to change my life somehow. This is not good enough anymore. Maybe I was in a job I didn't like anyway. I've got to find ways to rely on myself and start seeing through the facade of everything, and maybe stop sitting on my couch and wasting time with those people. It's completely destroying anything that's none of your highest good. So however long that takes, I suppose it's really in the hands of the people, you know. But in saying that though, Catherine, I think that every individual has such a unique journey, and you can still be in a 5D space, and you can still create what you need in your life in and around the destruction as well. So you're not needing to bring yourself down to everyone else's level if you feel like you've already passed those points in your life, you know. So you can still manifest within this situation. And we've also learned that, haven't we?
Absolutely, yeah. But I do agree with you, Catherine. I think everybody, that especially people that are watching these videos and, you know, within this truther community and that are awake, probably did expect to see more things come out in an obvious sort of sense. I mean, we hear about things obviously in alternative media. We talk about things all the time, and you see things on people's telegrams, and so much information comes through. It's very hard to keep up sometimes, and sometimes it feels like it's just overwhelming. Like we actually sometimes just take days off where we're not looking at Telegram, we're not looking at all these things, because it does actually overload the brain a little bit too much. And you know, we do try with our channel to be very empowering, and we do we speak to people that we find interesting or motivational in some sense, and that will bring some positivity, because it's so easy to get bogged down in that negativity. You know, especially when you hear things like, you would have heard of the Premier of Victoria, Mr. Andrews. I mean, he's just off the scales. The things that he's been saying, he's up to 2023 letting people back into the workforce. Yet yesterday I saw an article on Telegram, I think it was, about how we have the Australian Open. So it's like Wimbledon, the tennis. They're going to be letting in players that are this. Yeah. But they have to do like the full queue, like quarantine. Or was that too loud? Whereas the ones that do have this don't have to worry about that 2 week of queuing. But it's weird, because I would class tennis as work. Those people are making money from doing that as a job, as a living. Yeah. He's not letting people in his own state go to work if they don't have this. So it's so completely convoluted. And then we had the lady, the Premier of New South Wales, Gladys. You would have heard a lot about her. Yeah. She just resigned recently, as did the Deputy Premier of New South Wales. I think everyone was like, I saw images in a vision of people were cheering, from the rooftops when she stepped down. But they do have somebody in there replacing her right now, and they're still struggling over there. For anyone that isn't going along with this, they're in a world of pain. As a lot of people are across the whole of Australia. They're really being tested now, and people are having to stand up and go, my health is more important. My health and my family, my well-being is more important than my job. And no one has really ever been pushed to that point before, having to walk away from not only their careers, but in sense, sometimes people have, a big social life through their work as well. So it's coming at people from many different levels. And psychologically, this is very challenging. very, very challenging for people. And yeah, I suppose it's very similar in the UK. I mean, how are things traveling there in terms of like people in the workforce?
It's quite tricky really, because I mean, I'm very isolated from it all, because I made a decision a long while ago that I wasn't going to work for anyone else again. And I've done so many different careers in my lifetime because I find so many different things interesting. And it's funny looking back now. I've got experience in the National Health Service, I've got experience in telecoms, I've got experience in pollution and environmental management and all these different areas of natural health and things. And I can now see how they've all come together to give me a complete picture of a lot of what's going on. But I didn't see the pattern at the time. It looked like I was doing these completely mad moves from one career to another.
Oh, same.
And then hindsight is a wonderful thing. And now I was like, my God, that's why I can see it and other people can't, because I've had snippets into all these different areas and seen what's been going on for a long while. But in terms of how things are going here, it's really interesting. I think a bit like Australia, we're very different in different parts. So, you know, Scotland have got a lot stricter restrictions than most of the UK have. But even in England, it varies tremendously. So my husband went up to London for work this week, and he just, you know, no mask, no anything, doesn't get asked, certainly doesn't use any QR codes or anything like that, and completely ignores everything and gets on fine and has all his business meetings, goes out to lunch. And then you're hearing other people who are in London and aren't even completely refused access to the supermarket even. So it's very variable. And one of the things I've been really looking at over the last couple of months, because I'm like you, I really want to help people look for solutions, but also I think it's very easy when you're in my position. For example, I live in the middle of the countryside, I'm surrounded by animals, I'm my own boss, I've got children, which I'm going to come on to, but they're older, they're university age, not school children age. Now for the parents, it's horrific what's going on now and the choices they're being forced to make. Not that I would ever consider if I had a school age child, but I think my children, the thought of me home educating them would be their worst nightmare, because they certainly wouldn't be learning. But my children, you know, when I look at, you know, my children are 19 and 21, so they're big. But it's really hard as a parent to see so many of their choices ripped away from them. And at that age, I mean, when I was, you know, my son's age, I was traveling around Australia, New Zealand, all around the world, had the choices to go wherever I wanted, you know, worked here, there and everywhere, worked in different countries. And it's interesting because when you get older, you can look at things and you can see the greater good. But when you're young and you just want to get on with life and you think everything's there, it's very hard for you to see that, because that's not the stage of life you're at. So I think in the UK, the same as everywhere else, it's really hitting people differently. You know, if you need medical treatment, it's an absolute disaster. There's a lot of people struggling with mental health issues. There's no services available or support available to them. People with cancer diagnoses. Now, you know, personally, I'm very into holistic therapies, not the natural, but that everyone should have a choice about what route of treatment they want to go down. And these choices are just being completely stripped away from them. So I think it's interesting. I heard David Martin speaking this morning, who I absolutely love him, is amazing. And, you know, it is so obvious to those of us that can see that this is nothing to do with health. This is to do with trying to implement new controls on society. But it amazes me how many people cannot see that. So in the UK at the moment, the propaganda, I never watch the news, the propaganda is unbelievable. So somehow over the last couple of weeks, the level of fear in the general public who's not watching shows like this has ramped up, and they're really, really pushing the fact that the people who haven't had this are super spreaders and the children are super spreaders, and the case numbers are really high, and we're going to have to go back into lockdown again, and they're going to have to put more stringent regulations in place, perhaps mandating this and things like that. So you can see it ramping up again. And what I'm quite surprised about, there are big groups of people leaving their jobs because of this, but there's a huge amount that are not. And there's a huge amount that are still going along with the agenda. And I just find it fascinating to watch, to see, you know, everyone's got their threshold, haven't they? We're all, as you said, we're all individual, and everyone's got a threshold beyond which point they will not be pushed any further. And they've tried the save your grandmother approach. They've tried the bribing you with burgers and free taxi rides. They've tried the you've got to be a responsible citizen. And yet the fact that they're saying that we're in the middle of a pandemic and they're prepared to let all the healthcare workers walk out, who've probably all got complete natural immunity to whatever is going around, says it all. But still a lot of people that I know are completely going along with the story.
Right, gosh, yeah.
Oh, we most definitely understand, Catherine. We're in a similar position. We're lucky that you know, our immediate family, so our mum and dad, and you know, some immediate family members are on the same page as us.
Yeah.
Certainly mum and dad, and they've been saying that there's going to be a revolution for like probably what 5, 6, 10 years maybe. I don't know. They've been talking about this for a long time. Yeah. So, and I guess back then we probably thought, oh, what are they really talking about? But we I guess we're very lucky to have been around that, and you know, but we have our own minds too. And you know, for example, Catherine, a lot of workplaces, you know, every year would bring in, you know, the general flu kind of thing, which they give to people to try and, you know, keep them healthy and all the rest of it. And I would always decline it. So in the past couple of years when I was back at my previous job, and it was, as I said, it was a TV station, so there's a lot of people. So they do bring them into these types of workplaces, especially, and they offer it up. And people think it's great. They're getting something for free and it's going to help me. And I kid you not, like I was the only person, with the exception of someone in a couple of journalists that might have been away that day. They weren't rostered on that day or something. But I was the only person that didn't get, you know, the general sort of thing every year. And I would have people always say to me, oh, why don't you want to get it? Oh yeah, you're one of those people.
Exactly.
Like, what is one of those people? what is that? But that was just something of my own brain. Like, you know, my mum and dad didn't have to tell me that, you know, in my growing up years or, you know, younger years. And Julia was the same. And she actually had a really, you had a bad experience with one of those, what do we call them? Like,
I know.
I
normally again. Yeah.
No, I only had one flu thing, I'll call it a thing, many years ago now, Catherine. And
was it to go overseas? Was that
I think it was. And I had a really fussy doctor at the time. I remember she was very lovely, but she was sort of very overbearing, and she was like, oh, you're going to do this, and I obviously ended up leaving her behind because I didn't like anyone telling me anything, obviously, with the way I've grown up. But
yes, we'll do it our way, people.
We'll think for ourselves, thanks. And she encouraged me to get this shot, and I did. And then some months later, maybe been a year even, I remember waking up one particular day, Catherine, and I couldn't actually walk. Like my muscles had like completely like failed on me, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I had like really swollen eyes, I had these glands so like up, and it took me a while to connect it back to this because I'd only ever had one, and it took me years to recover from that. And I actually kept working and exercising through it because I was just one of those people who's always wants to kind of fix myself, and I always believed in natural healing like yourself. So I kind of just healed myself through it. But I also had a nutritionist that really helped me as well. And about 10 years ago, kind of got us onto the whole zinc, vitamin C, you know, all the sort of things we're all being told about now. So we've been doing that for a long time, but that reaction to that, is not surprising. And it really took me a long time to recover. So obviously I'm not very pro that situation that's being pushed onto people, obviously, you know.
But they were telling you, different doctors were telling you that you had chronic fatigue.
That I also had like different diseases and things like that. Like they were just giving me these really ridiculous diagnosis, and I didn't believe any of it. I was just like, no, I don't. So my mum actually found a really lovely nutritionist, and I still see her to this day. The other funny thing was when I was little, quick side story, but we used to go to restaurants sometimes, and I remember sort of sitting in the corner in this sort of bad mood and like almost in tears, because I could pick up that the restaurants and places weren't doing the right things in the kitchen, and they were like serving up these like awful foods and, you know, all this sugar and everything. And I didn't even know why I was crying, like, but I know now it was because I was sensing all this bad stuff that people were ingesting, and I just went, oh, this is bad, like I want to take it away from everyone. Like, please stop eating all this stuff. It's not good. And now we found out all this stuff about McDonald's and all these awful organizations with all this, you know, it's just so disgusting. You can't even fathom it. You know, obviously I didn't know about that kind of thing, but I just was really unhappy with what people were ingesting. But I tell that story as well, Catherine, because, you know, as you were saying, it's really hard to sort of see different groups of people, and like your children, you know, we're all going through different sort of journeys, I suppose. But I think another thing we've really had to work on this year is holding our own light and not dimming it down and sort of falling prey to the 3D in a sense, and keeping really strong on your own journey. If our journey is to bring information or to do something else completely, you've really got to follow that. And this is, again, what this Great Awakening is about. It's tuning back into yourself, getting to know yourself again, or if you ever have, and really understanding what being authentic is to you, what being vulnerable is to you, what being completely honest is to you. And a lot of this stuff is falling away for us anyway. So that's the upside of this. Obviously, there's so much distraction that we're going through as well, but we choose to look at things in a way that, you know, trying to be curious about things, and rather than being a victim to everything, oh, this is happening, and really staying on that level of consciousness. And really that's the way to move through this. And on the other side of it, we will be better off. But, you know, everyone's got their own journey, and people have signed up for different soul journeys, and some might be wanting to do it more tough than others. And that's just so unique to every single person. So we can't control all of that.
Yeah, sorry, the delay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You're so right, because it's so funny, because I've never been a rebellious person as such. Well, I've always had very strong opinions and being able to see things in a different way. But I loved school. I was one of these children. I really loved school. I loved learning. I had some really good friends at school. I loved university. I loved having good old debates with the lecturers and didn't accept everything they say. But in those days, we were allowed to do that as well, you know. So I love learning, and I love participating in lots of different things. Whereas my twin sister's always been quite rebellious and sort of a bit of the naughty one. But what I found really interesting in this society is it's just like there's never been in our family, in our immediate family, it's never been any option that we would go along with this or comply. And it's quite funny, because we're sort of always been thought of the more compliant ones, because we've quite liked some of these stages we've gone through. I mean, I've had a lovely life. Because I've always had the attitude, well, if I don't like a job, that's fine, I'll just change it and do something different. And that's what I've always done. So I've never had to stay in a situation, or I've never allowed myself to stay in a situation that hasn't been, you know, in alignment with myself. And I'm very lucky to live in a part of the world where those opportunities exist, and I've been able to do that. So but it's really funny when you see, actually, I know this is different for different people in different parts of the world. But say, take where we are in the UK, and even my daughter went over to America, where all sorts of these were compulsory, but she managed to get herself out of all of them. Now, yes, it took a bit of effort on her behalf, and it took a real determination that she was not, you know, there was no way, but she did it all on her own back very, very well. And I think it's upsetting to me a bit, sort of as an empath, to see so many people that don't feel they have a choice. Because I've never felt that. I've never felt I didn't have a choice. I do understand in certain parts of the world, you know, people do not have that luxury. But even where I live, it's so many people do not feel they have a choice. And that's why I love speaking to people like you, because everyone has got a different gift to share about how they can give people new ways of looking at things, to realize that perhaps they do have more choices over their life than they thought they had.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, Catherine. And I think that maybe for empaths and people that have been awake for a long time, this is another opportunity to step up and really evolve even further. And for people that aren't awake at all, this is their opportunity to wake up and to start their journey. So everyone's on a different level, but it's really important that we're not dropping ourselves down to levels that we've already passed, and that, you know, we have to be leaders in a sense and maintain that, because otherwise, you know, there's no point in dropping back in general. But there is, like also you were saying, Catherine, you know, you've liked a lot of your life and a lot of your experiences, but you still, in all of that, were prepared to leave something behind if it didn't feel right. And that's being someone who's very intuitive and tuned in, and you know when to say goodbye to something, you know when to take on something new. And it probably hasn't always been easy, every opportunity to find, but it's that determination and trust in yourself that something will turn up, because you knew you had to leave something else behind. It is simply, I think, I don't want to say simple, because it's not simple for everyone, you know, it depends on your character, but it is really basic in the sense that it really just is about trusting in your truth, in your spirit, and keeping your spirit alive, you know, really shining that bright. So important right now, especially.
Yeah, that actually just makes me remember back to when we first got to London and we were looking at doing similar jobs that we'd had just left behind, so in media and in production.
We thought maybe it'd be different when we got there, like not dark.
Well, we thought obviously we needed a job to obviously pay for things, Catherine, because London is a very expensive city to live in. So we just kind of, I guess we wanted to leave what we were doing here because we thought we'd done enough, and you know, things were just, I don't know, we just didn't have a feeling that we should still be there. So we thought, okay, you know, we'll make this move to London, and obviously we had to look at getting jobs. And I mean, I kid you not, there's different roles are coming up, and they were for, you know, for these really, really like well-known companies. And we had like both of us had things at BBC. We could have taken NBC, which is another TV network, the American TV network. Jamie Oliver, there was an opportunity working for Jamie Oliver's, you know, production company. And then just lots of different places that ordinarily, like previous to that, we would have snapped up in a second. We would have said, absolutely, I'll take that. That would have given us another
good experience.
Good experience, would have looked good on the resume or the CV, whatever you call it there. But there was, I don't know.
We were like, no.
I can't tell you what we felt rather weird when we were doing it. We felt like, why are we saying no to these things? Why is it not right? Are we being too precious here? And obviously we need the money. We were just living off our savings at that point. So yeah, it was one of those things where we really started really honing in on our intuition, because we didn't actually have anyone around us that we knew. Like we didn't have any sort of friends there that we, you know, sort of set up previously and
we weren't
were helping us out.
Influenced, I think,
no.
Catherine. We were sort of on our own, and we had to sort of do it on our own, and nobody was telling us.
We made that choice to do that. Yeah. So we left behind a whole bunch of people and things.
And I think in a sense it sort of prepared us for this next step now, because we really had to just rely on each other. We never really had to do that so much because we always had our parents around, or friends or partners or whatever. And this moment in time, we didn't have anyone else. It was just the two of us, and we had to really dig deep and go, actually, you know what? We don't need to be friends with those people anymore. They don't really make us happy, and these jobs didn't make us happy, and all these things that we're just kind of doing out of force, or it looked good, or it seemed right, didn't cut it anymore. So I think a lot of people will probably start feeling that now if they are in that position of having to leave their job.
But you do have to push past those uncomfortable moments, and there are stressful parts within that, no doubt. We're not you know, taking that away from anybody, but there is light at the other end of the tunnel, and people just have to realize that there is something more beautiful on the other side, and we do have to go through this painful stage. And you know, there's been a couple of times along this whole process in the past 18, what are we up to now? How many months are we doing this whole thing? I don't know, 20 months. Too long. Too long. There have been times that we've been thinking, I mean, are we thinking the right things here? I mean, are we just a very small minority here? Are we ever going to become the majority? But just the fact that, you know, we are doing this, that we're doing this right now, that we have a channel on the internet. We didn't even have social media before this, Catherine. I know we both worked in media, but we were so busy doing our jobs. We didn't want to be you know, swayed by all that stuff that goes with social media. You get very caught up with all of that. And we made a conscious choice to do that. So this was very,
and everyone thought we were weird.
Everyone thought we were weird
well.
with that.
They're like, why aren't you on social media? We're like, we don't like it.
Yeah, we don't like it. It's just too much energy, too many energies coming out. But we made that choice. Again, we've said it through this conversation. We do things our way, and if something doesn't feel right, then we don't do it. And even if it does mean you're going to have some difficult moments, well, then that's just what it is. But yeah, so I think we never would have anticipated we would be doing this right now. I mean, probably yourself. And I love and I love what you said before about you've gone in and out of lots of different roles and jobs within your life. And, you know, people might have thought at the time, like, how come this lady can't hold down a job? Like, what's going on? Like, why is she sort of so changeable? It's not about that. It's about gaining all of the perspective and gaining all of that knowledge throughout your whole life. And we've done that with our own, you know, careers to date, and all of that. Like, even me saying no to doing, you know, journalism in that sense, I get to do what I've always wanted to do, and that was to, you know, present information, to communicate information to people in a way that's uplifting, not like what the news does, and that brings people down. I wanted to do it my way, and this is the moment. And so things are making sense for us in that sense, and probably yourself too, Catherine.
Yeah, I mean,
Catherine, how did you start your channel?
Well, I never, ever thought I'd be doing this at all. You know, I was working in animal health, had a couple of my own businesses and things. And then when all this kicked off, I couldn't even bear. I mean, I haven't watched the news for years because I just have never believed a word of it. And much the ridicule of a lot of people, really, that I wasn't educating myself and keeping up to date with what was going on. But when this all started, and I started watching some of the people that were talking up against it, and then when I was watching them, I was thinking, I was coming up with all these questions myself that I wanted people to ask them. And then I had a really good friend in America, Kelly, and we connected before this all happened because we'd gone on a retreat together and we got on really well. And she sort of, we both sort of said, well, why don't we just ask to speak to them and go on? And I didn't expect them to say yes. You know, I thought they'd say, oh no, you haven't got a channel, you do this. But it was literally just because I had all these questions in my head that I wanted to ask. It was never an intention to do this. But then I thought, well, this is so fantastic because I'm speaking to all these really amazing people. You know, my passion has always been learning. I'm like you were saying, Julia, earlier, I've always been a why it's a thing, because I just always want to know. And what I find really fascinating is, like, what could be better that I get this opportunity to speak to these really amazing, uplifting people. And I'm like you, I only speak to people that are prepared to look at solutions, which is what I want to come on to finish up to. So most of my careers have not been planned at all. They've been following a passion and just going with it, which is hysterical because I've got a master's in business administration. I've got all that, but I've always been the type of person that has just followed what feels right. And what I find lovely is the fact it's got me so much ridicule up to now because I've given up very important, powering jobs because I just didn't like them and I just didn't like what I was seeing. Doesn't mean I didn't learn some very useful things for them and meet some really good friends on the way. But it just wasn't for me because I need to be able to sort of go with the flow and go where life takes me, not be stuck in a box. And now it's really bearing fruition because this last year, when everyone's had all these awful challenges with my jobs, I haven't had any of them. You know, I've just been carrying on. But I do think what you were both saying earlier, and I'd like to come on to solutions, finish up, is really important. So my husband is a completely different personality, is so laid back, is horizontal. He's in a very traditional job, but he's never been on social media. He's never engaged in sort of any of the drama around all this. Now, he's the only person I know who's never been called up for one of these. Never had any problem getting in anywhere without a face nappy, without this or anything, because he energetically just doesn't engage in any of it. So he doesn't believe most of what I believe at all. He's not into these at all, never has been. He completely thinks I've got my Satsuma over there and my essential oils. He completely believes that, you know, we can take responsibility for our own health. He has no opinion on what anyone else does, because as far as he's concerned, you know, each of us will live our own lives and make decisions for ourselves. So you don't have to be, there's loads of different ways for all the different personalities to fit into this. But what he has demonstrated more clearly, I think, than anyone else, even though he doesn't believe about little people in tunnels and all the other things that he thinks I'm completely mad on, because energetically he hasn't engaged in any of the drama, none of it has affected him, which has worked out beautifully for him so far. So what are some of your top tips?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
It's amazing. It is.
What was that last?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, that's interesting. I mean, what were you going to say to that, Kelly? Sorry.
I just said that I love that. I love his attitude. I mean, obviously he might not be perhaps as knowledgeable as you on these topics, but you know, sometimes we've even questioned to ourselves, like, should we just ignore all of this and pretend it's not there and just be on our own timeline and that sort of thing, and just stick with our own minds? We probably would get to the same point. But look, no, that's not our journey in this, because obviously our journey is to help people. It's to help humanity, as it is as your role too, Catherine. You wouldn't be doing this channel if that wasn't what part of your journey is, you know, on this earth. So yeah,
I was going to say, Catherine, you know, your husband's probably a really amazing balance for you, because he doesn't sound like an empath at all. So he's kind of like teaching you, I think, of how to maybe find balance within yourself, in the sense that, you know, where to cut off and where to just hold your own frame and not have to sort of lose your frame in other people and in other energies and things like that. Because as an empath, because you said that you're an empath, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you can tend to sort of lose yourself, and your energy, like your frame kind of melts into another person who has a stronger frame, and you're always trying to please situations and please people, to the point really where you're not necessarily looking after yourself to the level where you should be. And that's that sort of fine line, isn't it, for empaths? But you know, we were speaking to a lovely person the other day, Sherry, on our channel, and she did make a really good point about empaths. You know, it's a gift. It's, you know, being really super sensitive, it's a gift. It's not a hindrance to people. So everyone has their own superpower, and your husband, knowing his boundaries and knowing not to have to tune into all of this, is probably his superpower in a way, and it's like a really good support for you in that sense. So it's teaching you something as much as you might be teaching him subconsciously, you know, in a way that he maybe doesn't even know about.
Yeah, we have some brilliant conversations. I think it's so important that people, what you were just both saying then, is that we all realize there's a place for everyone in this. So depending, no, you don't have to change your personality and change yourself, just to have the confidence, as we were speaking about before, to be yourself and do it your way.
Yeah, and that's exactly perfect. And I love you sharing that part about your husband, because it is such a good balance to what we're talking about right now. And this is the time to be as authentic as possible, as true to yourself as possible. And everyone has something to offer. And if we didn't have all these different people, you know, we wouldn't have a good, like, balanced sort of system. So if everyone, our tips, I think, and Kelly, if you want to share any as well, but my top tip would be really just to find out through this process what your wants really are, what your truth really is. And take, if you're in your house a lot at the moment, or on your own or whatever, use it as a way to really get to know yourself, because before you were so probably distracted with everything that you just didn't have the chance, the time to even bother to do that. This is a chance, it's been a chance for everybody to really understand who they are so much better. So if you're using this time in the right way, you can really discover what you're really made of, and that will come through. And you will, just by making one little step in a direction that feels true to yourself, if it's dropping a friend, or if it's changing your job, or, you know, whatever it is, leaving your job because you chose your health over it, then that's going to empower you more than you could ever know. And you're just going to keep taking steps like that. It takes one step, just one step, to help you take these things forward. And you'd be surprised. And some people can learn really quickly. I'm sure a lot of these people that are asleep or whatever, they might be people that can learn like that, you know. We just don't know as soon as they wake up. So that's my top tip.
Well, I have two tips, Catherine. So one of them would be to obviously turn off mainstream sort of media. Everyone says that, but I think a lot of us still get a little bit sucked into it, and it's hard not to when you're doing research. Even by Telegram, people put a lot of that information on there. It seeps out, but keep away from it as much as possible. And I think it's really important to not overload yourself with information. So quite often we'll say, really just if there's certain people online in the truth community or space that resonate with you, just stick with those, even if it's just a couple or one, or just stick with the ones that make you feel good. If you come off from those videos and you feel better, you feel uplifted, if it's from the information or the empowerment that they've given, or they've talked to someone very motivational or whatever it might be, stick to those things. Don't try and get too much information. I think everyone's so conscious of I need to know more. They want more. And I know, because we all want to get there. We all want to get to the goal here, which is the freedom and sovereignty. We all want to get to that space, but you do have to restrain yourself somewhat to allow yourself to don't get too distracted with too much information. So I'll say that just keep the information to a minimum so you can actually process it. And the other thing would be, and a lot of people say it, but to get out in nature, because that's really the only way that you can actually disconnect, from devices, from technology, from all the distractions, from people in your life. And it does ground you. If you manage to get out to the beach or on the grass, earth yourself, it really does help. You'd be surprised how much better you feel once you come back from a walk, or just from being outside in the sunlight. So that would be my top tips. Avoid as many distractions, don't overload yourself with information, and get out in nature.
And also, Catherine, we do a little bit of astrology. Well, we do talk to astrologers. So in terms of that type of thing, there are eclipses coming up as we move into the rest of the year, and we will see more social unrest in November and December. But we all have to remember as well that there are seasons for everything, and every season. Yes. When I say seasons, I'm not just referring to weather. I'm referring to, just a season of you're more hibernating, or there's a season for you to come out and be bright and be this and that. And that, again, it comes back to being very unique to yourself. So it's really about, and as we go into 2022, the astrology is going to get, even different again. And we are going to see changes. We will see changes in the 3D. It's just that the 3D right now is representing to us what the old is. So people are like, well, where's the good stuff? Well, that's all being created right now with all of our visuals, with all of our intention. How important is intention? And I would say, to finish, the key really is to master yourself. Master yourself, and you will find beautiful things opening up for you. And that could be going to a rally as part of your journey, or attending every rally, stepping up and speaking at one, making 50 phone calls to someone if you've got children at a school that's not doing the right thing.
Or even one phone call. You don't have to do 50. Just do what you can do.
Or it could just be laying in your bed. It could just be laying in your bed visualizing, because you don't have the energy to do that. It doesn't matter, because it's what's unique to you and your path. That's the best contribution you could actually make, is being authentic to you.
It's about collective intentions. That's why it is so important not to keep looking at the news, and because subconsciously you are manifesting what you see. So it's so important to, if everyone in the whole world obviously had a much better collective intention, we wouldn't be in this position. Because like you said, we've already manifested where we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is all the old stuff this is rolling out.
This
is what we're still seeing. So.
And anything
they're out too.
That's beautiful, ladies. And one of the first things, I made a note of it on my bit of paper because I didn't want to interrupt you, but one of the first things when you were talking to each other about your childhood growing up that really struck me, that I think is so important for people, is you said to each other that you used to ask each other, how do you feel? And we're so used to asking people, what do they think? But there's a huge difference about what you think and what you feel. So my sort of tip to end on would be everything that you've said, but also to be asking ourselves and others how you feel about it, and getting away from what we think about it, because we're moving out of more of a head-centered society, and I've been in that world of academia for a long while, and it's so freeing and wonderful when you don't have to explain everything intellectually. There's times and places for that. So I've been eternally grateful for the Dolores Cahills, Robert Young's, the Judy Mikovich's, the things, because you need that intellect and you need it. And some people need that. But also when we ask ourselves at an individual how we feel about something, then we're getting really on point and close to what's right for us. And we very rarely make a wrong decision, I think, from that feeling place. Oh, it's been so lovely speaking to you, ladies. I so love.
Thank you,
Catherine. Thank you so much for having us on.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, it's just lovely. And it's so special for me to see two ladies, two sisters that complement each other beautifully. And what I love is when you talk, and it's been, you know, Zoom, when sometimes like today, there's big delays and things, but I love the way, and I think we all need to learn so much from the way you two communicate with each other, where you're really actively listening to each other and giving each other a chance to express themselves, and there's no competition there, and it's just beautiful synergy rather than combination. So it's why I love watching you two so much, because I think you're such an example to everyone about how we can be different. I mean, of course, as you said, we've got lots of similarities, but lots of individualities as well. And we don't always have to agree, and we don't have to be the same, but having those lovely, respectful conversations with each other is so important. So I applaud you, ladies. You're such a...
Exactly.
Oh, I'd love to do this again.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Yes, we will.
And keep us updated
Thank
about
you for
what's
having us on,
happening.
Catherine.
Bye.
We will.
We will. And